Praise Messias Nevish, everybody that comes. Ice on the floor.
It was pretty traumatic.
What?
It was pretty traumatic.
You have to be very careful.
I have to walk very slow.
Yeah, and the 770, like the stairs are like so slippery, and like if you try to hold on to the
Thank you.
railing, and the railing is slippery, and it's like.
Yeah.
We're gonna be using it soon, yeah?
So you give it up, huh? Thank you. I first want to finish what we did yesterday with the Rebbe's Minder, and then okay. This is enough of a reason for the Abish to bring Mashiach. Look, everybody, we have serious nefesh. It is cold, the weather, like in ancient Russia. So first we'll start with the Kapitel Chav and beg the Abish that in the schus of this Tillin, everything should stop already, all the nonsense. We should have total peace, total victory, total downfall of all the enemies. And the Emes should be revealed in the world is Mashiach. And of course, all the hostages and all the soldiers, everybody should be healthy and well, come back home. Lam natseach mizmel David. Yancha Eloi b'yem tzorois ageb Hashem Elohei Yaakov. Yishlach nevucha mikodesh u'mitzion yisadeka. Yizkar kol menchosecha ve'iloscha yidashne selam. Yiten lechochel bavecha v'chalatzoscha yimali. Neranano b'shuasecha. L'shem Eloheinu nidgel. Yimali Adonai kol meshal yisecha. Ato yedayim ki Yeshia Adonai Mashiach. Yanehu b'shmei kodshe. B'gvuros yesha yeminoi. Eile v'rechev ve'eile v'asusim v'anachnu b'shem Adonai Eloheinu nazke. Heima korov v'nafolu v'anachnu kamnu v'anesedod Adonai Heshia HaMelech Yaneinu v'yem koreinu. So, but first we're going to finish what we did yesterday. If anyone doesn't have it from yesterday, I have more copies here. Yes. So every year on each shvat, there's a different mimer or
Yeah.
every year?
Right. Yeah. Each mimer explains a different part of the original Basilagani of the Friedrich Rebbe.
They did break them all up, like how long is it from 3 records?
So I actually had planned to do that, I couldn't find it. It's probably downstairs. There are 2 volumes. Probably they both look something like this or a little more. One says Basilagani Aleph, that's the first 20 Maimarim. And another one is another 20, close to 40 Maimarim on Basilagani. They all start with the words Basilagani, and they're all explanation on the original Basilagani.
What year was the first Basilagani?
Tafshin Yud, 1950. The Friedrich Rebbe.
So Yud, Tafshin Yud?
Okay, so these sheets, look at page Lamed. Lamed. As the question yesterday, what about the Rabbeim? So here's the next piece. After it was explained yesterday the difference between Yosef and the brothers, how Yosef was in Mitzrayim, with Mitzrayim, dealing with them, doing their accounting, their bookkeeping, running the country. He had to authorize everything that's going on. And yet, every single thing he did, everything he was involved with, he was involved with it, and he saw it at the same level as in Atzilus, while he was doing things down here the way they are down here. Mosef Shom, Friedrich adds, Shemitzinu Kain Eitzel Nasi Yisrael Gam B'Derish Rachnezeh.
that what we see by Yosef, we also saw by the Nesiim, by leaders of Eden in the generations following that. Shazeh Paul Baal Shem Tov, and the Baal Shem Tov was the one that accomplished this. Sha'ab Shoyu Lamata B'Olam Hazeh Gashmi, although he was in this physical world, Lo Yilei Shum Stira Klal, this is no contradiction, Li'ez Gam B'Olam Hazeh that he was at the same time in the higher worlds. He was in both worlds at the same time. And he related to both things at the same time. Even though on one level he's talking about something physical and material, and on the other level he's talking on something that's in Atzilus, in the highest of levels, it was not a contradiction. Like the Mitzvah Rebbe writes, Masha Baal Shem Tov is followed Kamat Tfilis. The Baal Shem Tov prayed many times, many prayers, and he asked Hashem to give him this gift, Sheyuchal lahashiv l'shoylei, that he should be able to answer questions to people who ask him questions. Be'ez aliyas and nishmasei, even when his neshama goes up and he's in the higher spiritual realm, and he's experiencing things that are in a higher spiritual world. At the same time, if a person asks him a question, he should be able to relate to the person's question, give the person the answer, just like anyone else who would understand what's going on in this physical world. This means, although, in order to answer someone's question, regarding Olam Hazeh, question about business, a question about children, a question about the house, a question about other medical issues. This is all things in the physical world, and you have to understand how things are in the physical world to be able to relate to the question and give an appropriate answer. You have to answer according to the details. Nevertheless, at the time that the person asked them a question, and he was understood fully and understood completely all the details of the physical, he was standing by Bedosim, by the Regosi, and he was standing at the same high level as he is in the higher worlds and talking to somebody down here on his level. And just to give an example, or maybe two examples, there's a story with the Tzemach Tzedek. At one time, this was after a time period where in Lubavitch, in the city of Lubavitch, there was a fire. And after the fire, which burned down the shul and many homes, they had to be somewhere else for a while. And then finally, everything was rebuilt. And when they finished rebuilding the shul and moving back in, they made a Chanukas Habayis, celebrating when you go into a new apartment or you build a new shul or any new building, you celebrate what we call Chanukas Habayis. So the Tzemach Tzedek said he would be participating himself. In those days, they didn't have the way we had by our Rebbe, Farbrengen for hours and hours. When a Rebbe participated, he usually said a mimer, then he went back to his room. If you find any stories of sichos where Rebbe would sit and talk, so-called more casual conversation, that was usually with some older chassidim, family members by a table, but not with the general masses of chassidim. That was more a mimer. So when the Tzemach Tzedek said he's coming out to participate, they're all excited. The Rebbe's going to say a mimer. Tzemach Tzedek comes out, sits down, and then he says, what would you rather hear, a mimer or a story? Never heard such a question before. But they understood if the Tzemach Tzedek is asking the question, probably they should want to hear the story. So they said they want to hear the story. What does it mean, they? I'm imagining he must have asked one of the older chassidim who was the spokesman for everybody else. And he started to tell the story. What was the story? The story was, in those days, there was a very big tzaddik, whose name was Rabbi Yisrael of Ruzhin. And he had a chassid that was a landlord. and his tenant didn't pay rent for a year. An entire year went by, didn't pay any rent. So this landlord, the chassid, was going to evict him. He was begging him, pleading, said, I can't, I have expenses, I can't take it, you have to leave. What did the tenant do? He went to his Rebbe Sorozhiner, and he pleaded with him. He said, he wants to throw me out in the street. I can't, please write a note to him that he should give me another chance. And the Rebbe did that. So he gave him a chance. 1 month goes by, 2 months go by, an entire year goes by, he never paid rent again, 2 years now. So the chassid at the end of the 2 years says, you're out, that's it. Said, no, I'm begging. This year it's a little bit like the story with Paro. Please stop the plague. I'm going to let the Jews go out. As soon as it stops, no way. Stop the second plague. I'm going to let them go out. Now for sure I'll let them out. The same thing here. He's promising that he's going to pay, but the year goes by, he didn't pay. So he did it a second time. He went to the Rebbe and said, please tell your chassid not to evict me. He gave it settled. He gave a note, they shouldn't evict him. Chassid had no choice. Then a third year goes by, he didn't pay a cent, 3 years in a row for rent. So this time the chassid again said, now you're surely going out. Again he ran to the Rebbe. And the third time the Rebbe gave again a note. The chassid said, I'm sorry, I'm throwing you out anyway. You're just taking advantage, you're just abusing the Rebbe, so to speak, for your personal theft. And I'm not going to put up with this, you're out. And he actually threw him out of the apartment. So Tzemach Tzedek said, when this chassid came Lamayla in the heavenly Bezdin, and he was being judged for the fact that he didn't listen to his Rebbe. For a chassid, that's a very serious violation. So his argument was that he listened to his Rebbe with everything and anything. They can check his record. This is one thing. It was just impossible for him to bear the pressure of lack of money and the parnasa, and seeing this person take advantage, it just took him over completely. And he was begging to be not punished. So the Bezdin Shamayla said that up there they can't make this judgment, because the angels who are sort of there in charge of the Bezdin Shamayla, they can't understand the pressure of parnasa that a person has down here. You have to understand that kind of pressure in order to be able to judge. No, I'm sorry, I gave it away. But the Tzemach Tzedek didn't say that. Tzemach Tzedek said to the Chassidim, what do you all think? Is he guilty or innocent? What do you think they said? Innocent. Yeah. So innocent, fine. He stopped and he walked back into the house. So later, one of his children asked Tzemach Tzedek, what was that all about? No mimer, a story, totally irrelevant, and asking the Chassidim for their opinion. So then he told them what I started to say, that in Shemayim, they said they can't make the decision because we have to understand the pressure that humans feel when there is such a predicament. And therefore, they have to ask people down here. So they chose Tzemach Tzedek that he should be the one to give the answer. And he chose a Chassidim that they should give the ruling. And that was the story. So in other words, what the Rebbe is saying here is if a person is asking you a question and they don't know what to do and how to do, in order to answer the question, you have to understand them, what they're feeling, what they're experiencing, where they're coming from, how it's affecting them. And only then could you really give an appropriate answer. So to be able to give that answer, you have to be down here and understand that. But the Baal Shem Tov is up there in a whole different world, like the angels. How could he answer such a question? So the answer is, Baal Shem Tov was in both worlds at the same time. The other story which brings out this point in a similar way is the story with the Rebbe Marash. It's a more known story. That the Rebbe Marash had Yechidus. Yechidus means the chassid comes in, and every night, dozens or more chassidim came to see the Rebbe. One night, in the middle of the Yechidus, the Rebbe stopped, and he told the secretary to bring him a different shirt. He wanted to change his shirt. He took the shirt, and he was shocked. The shirt was soaking wet, as if he was, carrying a ton of bricks or something. So he couldn't control himself. He said, the Rebbe, sweating from what? What did you do? I mean, there's no physical labor that the Rebbe was doing in the room. So Rebbe Marash said to him, Ramesh used to speak a lot of times in a humorous way. So this is the way he presented. He said, if a person comes into me, I don't remember the details, but I'm giving my own example. Let's say a farmer comes in and he talks about a certain problem that he has. In order for me to understand him, I have to put on farmer clothes and look at his life from the eyes of a farmer, and then I can understand him. But then I can't give him an answer. So I have to take off the farmer clothes, put back on my clothes, and now I could answer him. The next person who walks in is a person who's teaching children. In order to understand him, I have to put on a Malamad's clothes, the teacher, and look at the world through his eyes. And then I can understand him. But I can't answer him, so I have to go back into my clothes. And then the doctor walks in. And in order to answer him, I have to put on the doctor's clothes and look at the world through his eyes. So after doing this 100 times, I'm sweating from all the putting on and taking off all the different clothes. Of course, he didn't mean that in a physical sense, but what he meant to say was, in order for me to answer, I have to be in that person's situation. So how could you be in a person's situation when you're living in Atzilus, which is a totally removed world from this world? And this is what the Baal Shem Tov was about. In fact, let's do one more piece.
What was that about?
What?
What was that about?
The story that I told,
Yeah.
Rabbi Yisrael Ruzhin. He was a grandson of the great-grandson of the Mezritcher Maggid. And Chassidus used to call him the Heilige Ruzhiner, the Holy Ruzhiner. That's what he called him. His grandfather was the Malach. The Malach was the son of the Mezritcher Maggid. And if you know the story, he was the Chavrusa of the Alter Rebbe. When the Alter Rebbe came to the Mezritcher Maggid, first time, this was the first time he'd be learning Chassidus. But on the other hand, Mitzad Nigla, Mitzad Gemara, and everything else, the Alter Rebbe at that point was like a giant. And the Alter Rebbe, it says at what age was it that he finished Shas 16 times, the whole entire Shas with all the commentary at a very young age. So the Rebbe Rashab, I think, said there was another very well-known genius of Torah at that time that he finished Shas 613 times. And he said that Alter Rebbe is 16 times, way, way superior to 613 times. So the Alter Rebbe was already a giant as far as Gemara and all that is concerned. But Chassidus was new. So they made a Chavrusa. Chavrusa was the Alter Rebbe would learn with him Gemara on his level, and he would teach the Alter Rebbe Chassidus on his level. So they made an exchange of services. And the Alter Rebbe said that often he would turn the clock back so they'd have more time to learn.
You give us ideas, huh?
That's the problem, yeah. That's why it's so high up there. So the Alter Rebbe brought a source in the Zohar where for something like this, it's okay. Anyway, there's more to that. But as a result of that, all the Rebbes of Chabad and all the generations were very close to the Rebbes of this family. Even in our generation, the Rebbe had a very close association with those Hasidic Rebbes who are descendants of this Rebbe. There's quite a few branches. The Rebbe was close with those Rebbes. Anyway, getting back here, the next line says like this, and he concludes in the Maimon of the Frierdiker Rebbe, Shabbalel Shabbos Kodesh, Friday night, the Baal Shem Tov was 2/3 up there and 1/3 down here. B'shar Yemei Sachel, but during the weekdays, it was the opposite. He was 1/3 up there and 2/3 down here. And he says the fact that Shabbos was more than the weekdays, not because it was the assistance of Shabbos, it's because it was different Avodah. But in essence, the Baal Shem Tov was in both worlds at the same time. But Shabbos, because it's a Shabbos the day, he was 2/3 up there, 1/3 down here. And during the week, he was 2/3 down here, 1/3 up there. So he concludes that this is the way it was by the Baal Shem Tov, And I guess we can understand from this that this is the way it was by the Rabbeim, that they were like Yosef, they had the ability to be in both worlds at the same time. And it reminds me of a similar story, a story which brings out this point as well. The Frierdiker Rebbe was once having a Farbrengen, and there was a chassid there that was from the times of the Frierdiker Rebbe's father. So the Frierdiker Rebbe said to him, "Could you say something over from my father that you heard?" But the chassid felt like, I'm going to say something in front of the Rebbe. So he was quiet. And the Rebbe said, say something. I mean, you heard things from my father, say something. And again, he was quiet, but the Rebbe was persistent. So finally, he felt uncomfortable. So he said something to make light of it. And he said, he was afraid to say a words of Torah. What if he says it wrong? You know, a Rebbe's words are so precise, and he's speaking in front of a Rebbe. So he said, yeah, your father told me once to say L'chaim. He told me once to say L'chaim. So the Rebbe Rashab, so the Frierdiker Rebbe got very serious. And he said, when my father told someone to say L'chaim, he was speaking to his nefesh, his ruach, his neshama, his chaya, and his yichida. In other words, it wasn't just drink a little bit of mashka with l'chaim, but there was a message there to his nefesh, and another message to his ruach, which is higher, and a deeper message to his neshama, and a deeper message to his chaya, and a deeper message to his yichida. So he was talking to all 5 levels at the same time. So again, by a Rebbe, even a simple nuance and a simple statement. I just recently saw a video where someone walks over to the Rebbe, and Rabbi Groner introduces him and says, this is the man that prepares the hats for the Rebbe. He had a store, and he was the one that used to buy the hats for the Rebbe. The Rebbe thanked him, and the Rebbe, before he walks away, the Rebbe goes like this, like, take my hat off for you. So it looks like a gesture that anybody else would do. But as a chassid, we understand, of course, I'm sure that's what the person thought. But as a chassid, we understand that there's much more to it. What was to it? I can't explain. But a Rebbe does something, a movement, it's something which is Kodesh Kadoshim. Okay. So this is a piece of the Maimer of the Rebbe that explains the Maimer Basilagani of the Frierdiker Rebbe. What we want to do now is, do we have enough of these Sfarim? I need one here, there's 2 here, and there's more in that small room. Does everyone have what we need? Yeah? Take a look at the Sefer, you know which one to get, because they look good. Take one with you. You know which one? Okay, take one, yeah. At the same time, I saw another thing which someone sent in the video. I heard the story, but I never saw the actual video, so it was nice to see that. Again, you're talking about a Rebbe who has the whole world on his shoulders. He's also not just this world; he's involved in all the worlds, like it says here in the Maimer. And yet, when a person walks over, the Rebbe is involved in their personal life as if it was the only thing on his mind. So you see a person walking by. His name was Rabbi Folkman from Worcester. The Rebbe gives him $1, takes another $1 and says, this is for the chasana. You see him go like this. Like, what are you talking about? The Rebbe says, for the chasana. For your Yom HaChasana. And again, he was like, so it's a tumult, he couldn't even hear. So Rabbi Gorna says, the Rebbe is telling you for your wedding anniversary. Suddenly he breaks into a smile. The Rebbe says, I have to remember and I have to remind you that it's your wedding anniversary. There's no more? No? Can't be.
Not in this one.
No, I'll show.
Where did you look?
In the classes.
No.
Down.
No, the small room.
This one.
Okay. So there are two basic Maimorim when it comes to Basiligani, besides everything else. The two basic Maimorim is number one, the Maimor that the Frierdiker Rebbe said, Basiligani Tovshin Yud, 1950. Got it? Okay. The second basic Maimor is the Maimor of the Rebbe Tovshin Yud Aleph, which is the first Maimor the Rebbe said. I have one already, yeah. The first Maimor the Rebbe said, and it's not only because it's the first, but that Maimor was the Maimor with which the Rebbe accepted leadership. As you know, that the Rebbe refused to accept leadership, and Mirza Hashem on Friday will go through the details of what happened that first year, how it came about that the Rebbe became Rebbe, and what the Chassidim did, and how the Rebbe reacted. But it was an entire year that everything was tried, and the Rebbe refused to accept leadership. On Yud Shvat, which was the anniversary of the passing of the Frierdiker Rebbe, the first year, so that's Yud Shvat Tovshin Yud Aleph, the Rebbe said a Maimer. Once the Rebbe said a Maimer, then the Chassidim knew that the Rebbe accepted leadership. The Rebbe never got up and said, okay, I accept to become your Rebbe. He never said those words. What he did do, he said a Maimer. And once he said a Maimer, because a Maimer is something only a Rebbe says. Explanations and these kind of things, of course, every Chassid is required to learn and to understand, to give insight, but to say a Maimer, that's something which only a Rebbe does. A Maimer is said in a very special tune. When the Rebbe says a Maimer, he would put a handkerchief around his hand. This is something from the Alter Rebbe on. Some people explain that this was because a Maimer is a very big emotional experience, spiritual experience, and the handkerchief was sort of to be grounded. But that first Maimer, that's what the Rebbe did. He put on this handkerchief. He said the Maimer with the niggin, had his eyes closed, and the Maimer was Basiligani. And as soon as he said the Maimer, that was the sign that the Rebbe accepted leadership. In fact, right after that, one of the Chassidim jumped up on a table and he said, Baruch Hashem, we have a Rebbe, and made a bracha shechiyanu v'kimanu v'yanu zmanazeh. So this Maimer is also a historic Maimer because it's the first Maimer that Rebbe said. This is the Maimer with which the Rebbe expressed his acceptance of leadership. So it's a long Maimer, and part of it is very deep. So I'm just going to learn certain parts of the Maimer. It's the first Maimer in this book. There's a few Maimer. This is the first one. So we're going to start with page 33. What?
You've been for the 70?
If I was in 770, then?
Yeah.
Tovshin Yud? No. Yud Aleph? No. I was too small to hear the Maimer. Okay, so page 33 is the second ois of that Maimer. And there's certain parts which I want to go over specifically. We'll cover that and some other things today and tomorrow. And on Friday itself, we'll learn the original Basiligani, at least part of it, because that's one of the Rebbe's directives, what we should do for Yud Shvat. So in the Maimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe, it talks about the fact that when Hashem created the world, the Shechina was down here. And the term it uses, Iker Shechina b'tachtenim hoisa, which means the primary, the main essence of the Shechina was down here. And then, when Adam and Chava committed a sin by eating from the Eitz Hadas, the Shechina moved away from this world to the first heaven. And then, when Cain killed his brother Hevel, the Shechina moved away to the second heaven. And he goes on to the different sins that were committed. With each sin, the Shechina moved further away from this world to another heaven till it reached the seventh heaven. That's the furthest point from this physical world. Then came Avraham Avinu, the first of the tzaddikim, and he brought the Shechina back down
from seventh heaven to the sixth heaven. And then came Yitzchak, he brought it down from the sixth heaven to the fifth heaven. Then came Yaakov from the fifth heaven to the fourth heaven. And eventually Moshe Rabbeinu brought it down to the seventh heaven. So this is what he's referring to now. So when it says the essence of the Shekhinah was down here, it says in the Medrash, what does it mean down here? Sometimes when it says in the lower realms, it could mean a spiritual world, but a lower world. But in this context, it doesn't mean a lower world of the spiritual realm, but it means actually this physical Eilam Hazeh Agashmi. The Medrash explains that through the Aveira of Eitzadas, Nistalka Shechina Maras L'Rakia, if we say that through the Chetzadas, the Shechina went away from earth to the heaven, that means that initially, where was it? Here on earth. And through Matan Torah, when the Torah was given, that's when the Shechina came back. And that's why it says, Bosei Legani, I came to my garden, which means I came back to the place where I was originally. So the primary process, the most important part of the process that caused the Shekhinah to be removed from this, removed and withdrawn, was mainly the first Aveira, Eitzadas. Why? Let's turn the page. It's not just because chronologically was first. But he explains, page 34. Just like with the chet, the most important of all the sins was the chet eitzadas, more than the others that followed. Why? Before they ate from the eitzadas, things were so clear, it wouldn't be possible for a person to sin. By eating from the eitzadas, that's what created the potential that people could commit sin. And this gave the possibility for other averas. That means that chet eitzadas was the siba, was the cause that brought on all the other sins. The one who did avodah zarah, or the sins of the mabul, or the sins of the raflaga. All those sins are a result of this sin. So therefore, the first sin is the most important. The same thing is also with the effect. Every sin had an effect, except the other sins, their effect was the removal of the Shekhinah from one heaven to a higher heaven. The first Aveira caused the removal of the Shekhinah from earth to heaven. So this is the most important. The fact that the Shekhinah was removed through this Aveira, from all the other different levels and stages of the Shekhinah being removed, the most important one is the one that was removed from this physical world. Page 35. Just like when we say that initially, Hashem's Shekhinah was mainly and primarily in this physical world, so too when we say the Shekhinah was removed, what is the main concern about it being removed? The main thing is that it's being removed from this physical world. And that was accomplished through the first Aveira, Chet Eitzadas. This also is the reason when the Friedrich writes in his Maimer that there were different Averas that caused the Shekhinah to remove, it goes like this. First was Chet Eitzadas. Then was Cain, who killed Hevel. Then Enosh, who worshipped avodah zarah. So how come when he talks about Chet Eitzadas, he just mentions that alone? When he talks about the other Averas, he mentions a few of them together. So the answer is because this Avera stands alone. This Avera is different than all the others. This is the main Avera that caused the Shekhinah to be removed from this world. And that's the most relevant, the fact that it's removed from this world. The other Averas, the ones of Cain who killed Hevel, and Enosh who worshipped avodah zarah, they caused the Shekhinah to move away from one heaven to another heaven. But this Aveira caused the Eitzadas and the Stalka Me'oret to remove from the earth to the heaven. Page 36. And why is that the most important? So for two reasons. Levad ze shasilik me'aretz. First of all, this is the one that's most relevant to us. The fact that the Shekhinah was removed from this world, that affects us more than it was removed from one world to another. When it gets moved from level 5 to level 6, or level 4 to level 5, that's going on up there. To us already, it makes not much of a difference. We don't feel the difference. But when the Shekhinah was removed from earth, that really makes a difference. It's like, chas v'shalom, someone passes away, so the neshama goes up higher and higher, and it makes a certain difference. But the difference that makes us down here is the most when the neshama leaves this realm. Same thing here. Besides that, this is what's more relevant than anything else. He didn't explain yet, but we'll soon explain. And then it says in the Maimer, after that, there were 7 tzaddikim. They brought the Shekhinah back down here. Avraham had the merit. He was the first one. He brought the Shekhinah down from the 7th heaven to the 6th, which means everything Avraham Avinu did in his lifetime. The Akedah, Bris Milah, thrown into the furnace of fire, all the other 9 tests that he went through, went out and called Hashem's name, all his activities in his whole lifetime, all together, what did they accomplish at the end of his life? That the Shekhinah came down from level 7 to level 6. And then it went on with the other Rabbeim, and with the other tzaddikim, and those he doesn't go into the details. At Ki Moshe, until he comes to Moshe, and in reference to Moshe, he says, he's the 7th. V'chol hashvin chavivim. All the 7ths are the most cherished. He was the one that brought it down here on earth. That means Moshe was the one who he was the one who mainly brought the Shekhinah back. Why? Even though they all brought the Shekhinah back, but they all brought the Shekhinah back from level to level. And Moshe brought the Shekhinah back lamata baretz in this physical world. Which means Keshem Shabinyan Asiluk. Just like when we talk about the Shekhinah being removed from down here up there. So the Iker is the most important one is Chetei Tzadas, because then it was removed from earth. So too when we talk about the reverse, that the Shekhinah is being brought back, which is the most important of all that was brought back, is Hamshachah Mamayla Lamata. So the fact that it comes back from level to level, that's important. But the main thing is Hamshachah Lamata Baraz Dafka. And why? Just like you said before, when we spoke about the Shekhinah leaving. Besides the fact that the Shekhinah coming down to earth, that's what's most relevant to us, because this is something which we are feeling down here. Besides that, Gam Iker Inyan Hamshachah. This is in itself, in its own merit, this is the most important of everything that's happening, that the Shekhinah should be down here. And of course, the reason for that is because the whole purpose of creation was that Hashem wanted a dwelling place in this physical world. So what happens to this physical world, that is the most relevant, whether it's the Shekhinah leaving or the Shekhinah coming back. And who was the one who accomplished the most important of all? That was Moshe. Page 38. Ze nasai be Moshe Davka. So why is it taka that Moshe was the one that was able to do it? He had a